Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews is a master political strategist. His sole focus has been to enforce his political dominance over Victoria and deny the opposition any chance of taking office. Well, COVID has allowed Andrews to do just that, but corruption, scandal and controversy have riddled his government and those around him. And in order to minimise any political fallout or criminal charges that may come his way and protect those around him, he feels could threaten his re-election chances, Andrews, this week, flagged new laws that could protect Victoria's Chief Health Medical Officer, Brett Sutton, from being sued, not only strengthening Sutton's position, but also guaranteeing his silence. And joining us today to discuss what the move means and what could possibly be Andrews' agenda is the Shadow Opposition Minister for Health, Georgie Crozier. Good morning, Georgie.
Morning, Michael.
Now, what does this move actually mean for Sutton and for Andrews, do you think?
Well, this legislation that has come in, I haven't had a full briefing on the legislation. I'm waiting for the government to provide that to me next week. I hope that will occur. So I'll get a better indication about the intent of this bill. There's a lot wrapped up in this bill, but in this bill, there is an aspect that, as you rightly point out, protects the Chief Health Officer from being able to be sued, so effectively protected against any civil litigation or any other litigation that an individual might want to take. So whilst we've had, the Chief Health Officer in our lives for the last 2 years, everyone knows who the Chief Health Officer is. The government has relied on his advice to them. They've been shielded by that advice. We've never seen the full health advice, might I add, Michael, for the last 2 years. The government's new legislation says, well, we're providing greater transparency, but let's not forget that health advice that has been provided over the past 2 years, we have never fully seen. And whether it's issues around COVID or other issues for the ICOOK matter, that's where there is civil proceedings taking place. I think it is concerning that the government is putting in these protection mechanisms if there is reason for people to take action.
Now, you mentioned the information for the previous 2 years before the new transparency things came in. Not only has it been hard to get, Andrews has actually fought tooth and nail to stop us getting that, to the point where Sven Blumel, the information officer, has said that the whole FOI system needs an overhaul. So without that transparency, there can be no real accountability, and this just seems to be a step even further, doesn't it?
Yeah, there is no accountability with this government. No one has taken responsibility for the failures of the last 2 years with the COVID response. Let's just not forget the hotel quarantine inquiry, where there were, 10 bureaucrats, 3 ministers and the Premier who couldn't recall or couldn't remember. Now, what absolute bollocks. They spent more money on legal advice to protect them than they did on the entire inquiry. So this government is all about PR, media, management, spin. They're not interested in providing the truth or transparency to the Victorian community. And it is steeped in secrecy. The FOIs, I've had fully redacted FOIs, just to disgrace that the government continues to treat Victorians. I'm representing Victorians when I put these FOIs in. It's not for me, it's for the people of Victoria and those people I represent who voted me in. They want the information as much as I do. And I think it is entirely arrogant and a disgrace that the government is treating this. They keep saying they're so transparent, and never have we had a greater government with transparency mechanisms. I say that is absolute rubbish. We're constantly in VCAT fighting for the release of FOIs, and often we don't even get information released through the normal parliamentary process.
Now, Georgie, we're both big supporters of Ian Cook, so for transparency purposes, we've had Ian on here, and his story is greatly concerning. And is it coincidence that this legislation is being put forward at a time when Ian is just bringing things to a head with the directions hearing coming up in his civil case, which includes Brett Sutton?
Well, Michael, I want to have a look at this legislation and the detail of the legislation. I want to get legal advice to see if it will affect those proceedings, those legal proceedings that are currently underway by Ian Cook and the Cook family. And I'm waiting on that advice. I'm not a lawyer, so I do want to see that. But, you know, I find it curious that this is coming in, this element in this legislation is coming in at this point in time. So once I get that advice, then I'll certainly be, you know, saying more in the Parliament when it comes to debate it.
Now, on the surface, and from a layperson's perspective, again, as somebody not legal, this seems to turn the whole administrative law upside down, where it actually puts those those officials in positions of power that are appointed by our elected officials above any recourse. So untouchable, doesn't matter how badly they do their job, how shoddily it's done, there's no comeback for we the people.
Well, you're right, Michael. It is, you know, this is what's at risk here is our democratic institutions, and the people need to understand what is going on here. And as you say, turning it upside down. Adam Somyurek yesterday, when he moved his motion with the, you know, very contentious motion that got up, that's been in the news, and it's a complete bombshell for the Labor Party. He actually said in his contribution in the Parliament that words to the effect of, you know, you only have to walk through the various government departments and it's like going to a Labor state conference. I mean, basically what he's saying is that there are a whole range of Labor Party apparatchiks in these departments making these decisions on behalf of the people. So I think the impartiality element for our public service is very important. I think that, you know, goes to the trust and having that credibility for the Victorian public to have faith in what they do on behalf of all of us. And I think that's an incredibly important element that has been lost, and the last 2 years has certainly exposed just the extent of how our departments are working.
The partisan politicisation of the public service serves no one any good. And on the surface, it appears that this bill would enable one government to install somebody in this position and say, don't worry, please do our bidding. You can't be touched should you be sued by somebody that you affect negatively. So if you shut down a business such as Ian Cook, don't worry, you're safe. Is that a fair summation of it?
Well, look, there are many, many fantastic public servants. I don't want to, you know, cast aspersions on every public servant. There are some tremendous ones, and certainly some of them have come to me and spoken to me off the record to say how concerned they are about what is happening, especially in the Department of Health. So I'm very, you know, conscious of that. But what we need to have is a fair and balanced approach, and not a protection racket. We need a fair and balanced approach, and we need people to be able to question. And if they, for instance, in the likes of the Cooks who've had their business shut down, they've lost everything. They have been fighting this for 3 years. 3 years. They have every right to have our judicial process to be able to have that be represented in that in a fair way, and they also need to be able to see that if there has been wrongs have been done, that there are consequences. So I think it's, you know, of course, not everyone wants to be running around with becoming litigants all over the place, and we end up like some countries around the world. But when it's a fair and reasonable, substantive issue, then our judiciary and our processes should be fair so that the people can have trust in the system.
All right, Georgie Crozier, Shadow Minister for Health, thanks so much for your time, and please come back once you've had a good look at the legislation proposed.
Very happy to, Michael. Thank you so much indeed.